So I'm going to welcome 631. You're on the air. Who do I have?
Oh, hello. I'm so excited to be on the air with you. I'm sorry, this is Cecilia.
Hi, Cecilia. Welcome to the show.
Hello,
How can we support you today? Michael will be with us here in just a second, but...
Oh, that's lovely. I listen to you two all the time, and you are such a joy to listen to. Like the last gentleman was saying, we are all love, and I think we can use it more now than ever because we are so divided right now.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And I want to wish you a happy Veterans Day.
Thank you. Is there anything we can do to support you today?
Well, yes, I've been listening to you for so long. I feel like you're sort of like friends of mine. If that sounds silly,
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, but
we are.
Oh, thank you so much. The holidays are coming up, and they can be tricky with your family, right?
A lot of opportunities to learn forgiveness in family times today.
Oh, yes, I believe that so much, and I'm hoping that I'm afraid year I did something I wasn't proud of, and I am hoping to get forgiveness this year from my family. And I was wondering if I could ask your advice on this.
Certainly, that's what we're here for.
Oh,
so here would be my input.
Thank you so much. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Our culture has taught us the whole forgiveness process totally, completely backward. I cannot get forgiveness from you. You cannot get forgiveness from me. I will never get forgiveness from God because God's never going to forgive me because God has never judged me. That's a whole falsity. And what happened is the Greeks took the Aramaic idea, Jesus' original Aramaic idea of forgiveness, and turned it into pardoning. So now we tend to live, we've been brainwashed in a Greek culture. If you've been listening for a while, you've heard me say it more than once, that by the age of 4, the average person in this culture is a very devout and religious card-carrying member of the one world universal religion of blame. When we live in this blame mindset, then, of course, it's all everybody else's fault. So we've been taught we're going to let them off the hook for the pain that's inside of us. And, of course, let's say I was at that family gathering last year and I saw you do whatever it was you did, and it brought up, let's say, anger for me. So if I'm experiencing anger, and I don't know your name. What's your name?
Cecilia.
Cecilia. So, Cecilia, if I was interacting with you and you brought up anger for me, the anger that comes up in me, the only reason I'm feeling anger is because there's anger inside of me. The proper application of forgiveness, a la first century Aramaic Jesus, is now that you've shown me my anger, the anger that probably I had hidden from myself, and maybe I had that anger hidden away in my liver or a lung or wherever in my structure. The proper thing, if I was at that gathering with you, would be for me to go over and say, Cecilia, thank you for showing me my anger. Now that I know it's there, I'm going to stop blaming everybody else. I'm going to take responsibility for the anger that's inside of me. And now I understand there's this man, Jesus, 2,000 years ago, that taught a tool for how I go inside myself and remove my anger. Now we're talking about actual forgiveness. Now, if you did something
that's a lovely way to think of it.
Well, that's what forgiveness is. That's exactly what it is. The Greeks turned it backward. So there's nothing that you need to be forgiven for by anybody that was there, But you might ask their pardon, gee, and own it. Whatever it is that you did. You said you're not proud of it, so it sounds like there's some forgiveness work for you to do around yourself. And maybe, from the way you spoke that, maybe there's some guilt about whatever it is that you did. So, again, in the Aramaic sense...
the problem, I think the guilt for me comes so sorry. The guilt for me comes from the fact that my daughter doesn't know, because what happened was my grandson was just being very loud during the football game, and my husband was getting very upset, and I wanted to smooth things over. So I put just a bit of my sleeping medicine in his food, my grandson's food. And I worry that I put too much because he's having trouble reading now. And I haven't told my daughter that I did that. So I need to tell her so that I can start the forgiveness process.
Well, my offering would be that right now, right here at this very minute, is the time to start the forgiveness process. And the forgiveness process, first of all, that I would suggest you engage in is that you start to let loose of the guilt that you're feeling about what it is that you did. If you go to your daughter with guilt in your heart...
I'm so worried.
Well, I was starting to say...
I'm so worried to tell her, and I was wondering, would you be willing to... You say it so well. I can't, I'm not as articulate as you are. Would you be willing to tell her for me what you've said and break the news to her about what happened? And
well, first of all, let's look at where the forgiveness needs to be done. And the first place I offer is inside of you and that guilt that you're carrying.
Yes, I have so much guilt because the boy cannot read at this point, and I fear that that's my fault.
Say it again.
I have so much guilt because the boy cannot really read, and he used to be able to, and I'm afraid that that's my fault.
So then, if you go to your daughter with this guilt in your heart, chances are there's going to be quite an upset and disturbance in the family.
Oh, so I think so too. That's why I would love for you to tell her for me.
Well, let's back up a little bit and let's look at what you can do for yourself right here. And that is that you can apply forgiveness.
You won't tell her for me? I'm so sorry. I don't mean to interrupt.
Okay. Well, what I want to do is walk you through some healing tools here. And let's leave what she's told for a little later in the conversation. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay. So the first order of business is that Cecilia needs to do some forgiveness inside of herself and let go of this guilt. That would be the first thing I would suggest you do.
Yes, sir.
And so I don't know if you've done any of the worksheets to date. Have you used the forgiveness worksheet process yet?
Oh, I did a long time ago. I did not for this. I think I felt too bad to even, put it down on paper.
I understand. I understand fully. So I'm going to suggest that you put it down on paper, and you don't even think any further about saying a word to your daughter about it until you've done several worksheets around this and started to free yourself of what's going on inside of you. Then, the next step I would suggest is this medicine that you gave to your grandson. Was it your medicine, your husband's medicine? Where did it come from?
it was the sleeping pills that I take.
Okay. So I take it it's a prescription?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. And you've got a doctor that's prescribed them to you?
Yes, that is correct for myself.
Okay. Then once you've done some forgiveness work inside of yourself around this issue, I suggest you make an appointment with your doctor and go visit with him or her. And you tell them exactly what happened. You know, I took a third of a pill, a half a pill, whatever it is, and put in my grandson's food because my husband. Tell them exactly what happened. And find out, first of all, from your doctor whether or not this is something that would impact your grandson's reading. Is it in fact something that, I mean, you might be living in a fantasy that this has impacted his reading. You know, there are 1,000 things that can interfere with a kid reading. Their own stress, hostility, being picked on at school. There are 1,000 things that could be going on. Too much sugar. So I wouldn't be so quick to blame yourself for that, but I would definitely run it by the prescriber of the medicine and find out if that's a possibility. And if the doctor says, well, yeah, it really is, then I'd be asking the doctor, what can you do about it? If the doctor says, no, that's just not. Go ahead.
Oh, I see. I was going to say, so you think there's a possibility that, you know, putting a few of those pills in his food doesn't have anything to do with it?
There's a possibility, yes. That's why I check it out first with your doctor. And then,
that is a good idea. I just it's scary to me, obviously.
Well, but you really want to get clear on what's happening here. So if your doctor says, no, that's no possibility, then you can just let go of the whole thing. If your doctor says, well, yeah, it actually could, then I'd be working with your professional to say, okay, so what can I do about it? Is there a way we can establish what's going on? And then would be the time, if you choose to approach your daughter with, here's something that I did that I'm, you know, ashamed of, and I'm working on dealing with my shame and my guilt. And I've talked to my doctor, and my doctor says this is what we need to do. So if you choose to do it, go to her with a plan as to if this is possibly a factor, then here's what I've arranged that we can do about it. So that you're also, at the same time as you're owning it, you're making amends. Does that make sense?
It does. Everything you say makes a lot of sense. I'm just my anxiety is going so far up just thinking about talking to my daughter. I hear you. Sure you wouldn't be able to tell her this for me, just to sort of rip the Band-Aid off?
Well, as I say, let's leave that to later in the conversation. We're here to support you, and if that becomes an eventual need, then I would be happy to work with you. Okay, but before we go there, because my offering is, this is a major opportunity for your healing in your life, of your guilt, of your fear. And so you want to take advantage of the healing opportunity that's here as you're taking responsibility for what has happened.
I see.
So I would suggest starting to do the worksheet process around your fear of talking to your daughter, around the guilt for what you've done, and whatever else is going on. Those things, you're feeling them, you're experiencing them because they're inside of you, and here's your opportunity now that you're looking at those. No, I would ask the question, how many times in your life have you felt guilt about something? Like, how does guilt look like something that happens regularly in your life?
Oh, yes, that's a good question. Mm-hmm.
And then when I tie it in, when I hear that it ties into your husband being upset, how much of your life have you spent feeling like you're to blame for the state of your husband's upset?
Oh, well, I like to keep things nice. I don't like a lot of conflict. So if he's upset, I like to try to smooth it over.
Yeah. So then I would be doing some worksheets around being blamed for things that aren't your fault and accepting responsibility for things that aren't your responsibility. So this could be a major life-changing event for you, a really powerful healing event for you.
Yeah, that is amazing. I did not expect to get all of this out of this one question. I'm wondering if yes.
Well, my offering is this is not just a small event. This is a major opportunity for healing, and I'll just take my questions a step further, and that is, if you go back into your early life, how did it feel when your power person, which was probably either mom or dad, or maybe an older sister or brother, blamed you for what was happening?
Oh, yes, I would feel a lot of guilt for sure. I never want to let anyone down.
Excuse me, I just took a drink of water and it got a little bit down the wrong road. Just a second.
Oh, gosh.
So again, you're up against a major healing opportunity here. And have you worked with the Mind Shifter tool that we teach? Have you heard us talking about the Mind Shifter tool?
I have heard you talk about it. I have not used it.
Okay. Would you be willing to use it if I gave you a Mind Shifter?
I would consider it. I honestly, I would want to let my husband know that what I was getting myself into before I did all this.
Well, it'd just be something totally private, totally on your own. I'm just going to give you something to write and suggest that you use this thought that I'm going to share with you to bring up what it is that you're on the verge of healing. You're not making any commitment to anything outside of yourself. This would just be something, a tool for you to use.
Yes, sir. Okay. Yes, that sounds lovely.
Okay. So a mind shifter is a tool that we use that, because the mind works by the law of resonance, energy exchange, if I present a thought, like if I say to you, don't think about the color of your car, what moves in your mind? Something about the color of your car, or maybe you don't have a car. Okay, so that's called resonance. So something that was not in awareness a moment ago when I spoke that sentence, don't think about the color of your car, that which was not in awareness all of a sudden came to awareness. And that's how the Mind Shifter tool works. It's designed to bring things up that we haven't looked at and that we haven't dealt with. And I suspect from what you've shared with me, very possibly, that very early in your life, you were perhaps the center of blame for things and tried to be the peacemaker for everybody. Would that be accurate?
Oh, yes, you hit it on the head. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's time to let all that go, because you know something? Way back then and still today, you're innocent. You were not to blame for what anybody else was feeling, anybody else's upset, anybody else's disturbance. And unfortunately, in this culture, it's very common for men, especially, to blame women and keep women in that place. It's part of keeping women in servitude by keeping blame pouring on them. And so my offering is that perhaps it's time for you to be free of that dynamic in your life.
That is a hard thing for me to accept. I will tell you that much, but it does.
I hear you.
It would be so nice.
Wouldn't that be a nice life changer?
Oh, yes.
And I don't know exactly how many times you've been around the sun. It sounds like maybe a few. And, maybe it's time to shed this old dynamic.
Yeah, yes, I've been around a few. I suppose they say better late than never.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So the way that we use a mind shifter, have you got a pen and paper?
I do, yes.
Okay.
Got it right here for you.
All right. And so draw a line down the middle of the page. So you divide the page about in half, left and right side.
Yes, sir.
And then on the left side of the page, between the margin and the dividing line that you've got, I'm going to ask you to write down the thought. It's safe and healing. And I enjoy.
Okay.
And I enjoy.
And I enjoy.
Asking people to be responsible. So it's safe and healing.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy asking people to be responsible.
Yes.
For their own upset when it surfaces.
When it surfaces. Mm-hmm.
And what's the first thought that comes up for you when you think that thought?
Well, it's very scary. It's like talking to my daughter about this problem. It gives me some anxiety to think about that.
Okay, so here's my offering. It doesn't give you any anxiety. You have no anxiety whatsoever about sharing that with your daughter. But there's anxiety inside of you. And your mind pins it on that. Your mind pins it on your husband being upset in that circumstance. How many different things does your mind pin your anxiety on?
Oh, a lot
But the
of
fact
things,
is,
you know.
So there's anxiety inside of you, and it's time to be finished with it, dear heart. Anxiety does not belong inside of a human body or mind.
Mm.
So then what you do, now you got that thought on the left-hand side of the page, and then on the right-hand side, the first thing you said is that brings a lot of anxiety up. So put that on the right-hand side if you would.
All righty. I wrote down anxiety.
Okay. And then what's the next thought that comes? It's safe and healing, and I enjoy asking people to be responsible for their upset when it surfaces. What comes next?
Well, I suppose I have a little bit of hope that could be true, even though it doesn't feel true at the moment.
Okay, perfect. Down there. I feel hopeful, even though it doesn't feel true at the moment. And then we're going to shift that mind shifter just a little bit, and I'm going to invite you to just pay attention to the first thing that comes up as I give you this little change in it. It's safe and healing for me, and I enjoy asking my husband to be responsible for his upset when it surfaces. What's happening with your breath?
Well, that's that's a hard one. We've been together quite a long time, and I just like to be a peacemaker.
And you're used to being the one that takes blame.
Yes, well, I feel I can handle it better than he can.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'd mark all that down on the right-hand side of the page.
Okay.
And so what I'm going to suggest that you do is that you set aside a time once the show is over where you're in your own space,
mm-hmm.
and you spend at least 2 hours writing this thought. And each person who comes up, maybe instead of your husband's name in there, it might be Dad, that you were able to invite him to be responsible for his upset. Or maybe Mom. Or maybe your daughter. But spend a period of at least 2 hours writing this mind shifter and just free flow without censoring any of your thoughts. Let everything that comes up on the right-hand side, just write it down, whatever surfaces.
Okay, so sort of the people on the left side, and then my thoughts about it on the right, and whatever comes up.
Yes. And then tomorrow, how about if you bring that list, and let's look at, and we'll, do you have any worksheets printed?
I don't now, but my daughter is here. She could count for me. My problem is, I feel if I print this out, she'll ask what I'm doing, and I'll need to tell her the issue.
Well, I think that you can just tell her that you're doing some work on some anxiety that's come up for you, and this is a forgiveness process. I don't think you need to get into specifics with her. So if you were me talking to my daughter, you wouldn't say I did this thing to my grandson. I think it's premature. I'd invite you. This is going to be a process. This is a pretty big issue. It's been an issue all your life, and it has the potential to be a very big issue in your daughter's family. I see. I would suggest. That's a no on telling her now. That would be a no. This is a process. We want you to go through the process and clean up some of the things in your mind before we move into that realm. So what I'm suggesting is that you spend some time writing, and then maybe get your daughter to print off, if you've got a printer there, a dozen or so worksheets, not just one, but a dozen or so. Oh, okay. And then tomorrow, come back to the show with your list all set, and we'll get you started on some worksheets. Get a few of them started for you. Yes, sir. And then in the meantime, how about... absolutely print it out. Mm-hmm. Cool. And in the meantime, let's get an appointment set up to have at least a conversation with your doctor and see what his take is on what the possible effects are of these sleeping pills with your grandson. What age is your grandson, or was he last year? He was 9 years old last, so he'll be coming up to be 10 soon. Mm-hmm. Okay. So how about you do that, and tomorrow we'll talk again, and then I actually have a doctor's appointment tomorrow. Oh, how perfect! Yes, I actually have a. So I look how the universe will be there during the time of the show, but yes, isn't that a coincidence? Okay. Look how the universe is. So then let's plan to get together the next day. Then you'll have some information from your doctor, see what he has to say, or she, whichever it is. And then the next day, let's talk again, and let's support you through this whole healing process. My take is that what you're going to do as a result of this is you're going to free yourself of a lot of feeling blamed, a lot of guilt, and a lot of fear. And as you move those things out of your life, it's hard to imagine what's going to change, but things are going to change in very positive ways.
Oh, bless you. I hope that you are right, and I will give it my best.
All right, young lady. We'll look forward to the next conversation. Anything else we can support you with right now?
Oh, no, you've been wonderful to me. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Honored and delighted. What area of the country are you in, by the way?
I'm in Indiana.
Indiana. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, we'll look forward to talking with you.
Amazing. We will talk to you again. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day.
All right. Blessings.
Blessing.
Breathing with you. And notice that you've got a whole community of people from all over the world that are holding a space for you right now and what's surfacing for you. And this is what healing looks like. So we're on track with you. I'm delighted that you opened the space for us to support you.
Awesome.
So, Miss Jeannie?
Yes.
Do we have anybody else in the chat room?
Susan has her
let's
hand
say
up.
hello to Susan.
Hey,
Awesome.
lady. Hey. Well,
Hey,
that was a gut-wrenching, heart-rending little session you just had. Yeah. I think the fact that you made a suggestion to get real information, not just sit in the fear. I mean, every parent does bad things to their kids. Oh, and maybe she's blaming herself for something that she's not responsible for, and it wasn't a good idea to give the kid the pills, but I think it's great to get information and find out. It's hard to believe. Anyway, I won't go into it because I just commend you.
Instead of fantasizing the worst.
Yeah, I love that you gave her something concrete to go on and all the issues that led up to doing such a thing. Holy mackerel. I'll be eager to follow this one if she calls back in.
Yes.
Cecilia, bravo if you're still on, and Michael, bravo too. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. And everybody that's ready to heal, feeling blamed and fear about communicating, this is the space.
Yeah, and fearing.
So thank you, Cecilia, for opening the door.
Yeah. Well, on a lighter note, I'm taking a breath. Yeah. I wondered about aging and vitality. I know you say when your vitality is up, you can tackle more of the challenges. As an older person, I don't have the kind of physical vitality that I used to. It's good for my age, and also even tolerance, like going to a party. I used to kind of not like it very much. Now I just say no, unless somebody throws a party for me and I have to be there. But
I think that's called wisdom, Susan.
Well, okay, that's good. So I just want to hear from you that you think that no matter what age you are, if you're taking care of yourself, you probably have enough vitality to grow and grow and grow until you croak. And I know, Michael, you're going to say we don't have to croak. So let's leave that discussion out of it. Just age shouldn't be a factor, in other words.
Absolutely. If you look in the published records, some of the highest levels of accomplishment that people experience in their lives, their peak accomplishment years, are in their 80s.
Yeah.
And that, you look into psychological research. So, no, age is not a limit to being physiologically, mentally, and emotionally vital.
Okay.
And being able to work through whatever needs to be worked through.
Great.
I speak from my own personal experience and from working with people.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So, question number 2. In AA, they say, I'm Sue, I'm an alcoholic. And you say that you are an alcoholic for your entire life. You don't get cured. You just abstain and do the work, and you no longer are hurting yourself, but you're always an alcoholic. And the reason I ask is because I've been working on my journals toward writing a memoir, either for just myself, for my personal growth, or maybe for the kids, I don't know. What I've discovered is that I have repeated a pattern of codependent relationships since I was 4 years old. Very intense attachments with a sense of not being all right if that person doesn't care about me. And all kinds of permutations. And this is what I always talk about with you. But it's so amazing to me that even in 1999, I'm up to 1999, and I've got this great life, but I've got this other life that I'm dealing with. I know how to act. I'm not running around having affairs, but I am having affairs of the heart, you might say, or the psyche, or whatever you want to call it. And even in my 80s, there are certain people, I have a couple of them on my list right now, where I feel unwell when I'm around them. I'm watching my behavior. I'm wanting them to like me. I'm over vigilant. I'm not free. And I do wake-up sheets and I do this stuff, but I'm just aware. I know I'm handling them fine, I think.
Right.
But they're still there as an issue. And I really can't imagine ever letting that go. Is that because it's a favorite, miserable thing and I want to keep it? Or is it just the way addiction is?
Well, you remember one of the steps on the worksheet is I cancel my need to make up another story out of these brain cells.
Oh, yeah, you can do that and do that and do that. I know, I love that part.
Right.
But I don't achieve it for a long run.
So first of all, I don't think there is anybody who's an alcoholic. I think that's a fraud.
All right.
In fact, and the answer to that one is the first words on the worksheet. I, Michael, who am love. That's the only thing that's true about you. I, Susan, who am love. That's the only thing that's true about who you are. Now, are there people who are addicted to alcohol or drugs or being to blame or whatever? Yes, all kinds of addictions.
Yeah.
One of the things that I actually about 3 o'clock the other morning I got up and went downstairs writing, and unfortunately when I get these downloads I normally kind of disturb Jeannie's sleep pattern because when I get moving she gets moving. But what I was
ain't that the truth, Jeannie?
Yeah. So, but what came was the recognition that we are addicted. I've been working a lot on trying to understand or putting together an understanding of what it is that happens with people in the monumental shift that they have when they do the quantum still point. And what I'm recognizing, at least this is my best understanding at this moment, and you've heard me go through a few layers of this as I'm working to understand exactly what's happening, is that I think we become addicted to the physiological chemistry of the trauma-based thought disorders that we carry around in physiology. And this is what I got up and was writing about the other night, is that we're actually addicted to that. And one of the things that I'm seeing is that what holds those patterns in place is what the scriptures called, and it takes a level of building brain cells and understanding, but the scriptures talk about the mind of man. You remember that passage which we speak about, I speak about all the time. Yeshua comes out of the Garden of Gethsemane. Peter's railing on, trying to get the head chopped off of the high priest servant, and Yeshua says to him, get behind me, Satan.
Mm.
And then he defines what he means by Satan. For you think in the mind of man rather than the plan of God. And then look throughout the scriptures all the time that it talks about the mind of man. In this work, we talk about carbon-based memory. And what holds these trauma-based thought disorders in place is this mind of man in us. And we're addicted. I think virtually everybody's addicted to the physiologically traumatizing energy that moves when these thought disorders move. And what I'm seeing is that in the quantum still point, people go into process when they're doing still point, but happens, and what I'm aiming for when I do the quantum still point with people is not only getting into process, but getting into process and then having at least an instant where they are free of that mind, where they're literally out of their minds. I mean, I say that all the time. To heal, you got to be out of your mind. But here, literally, where that mind collapses for even an instant. And I think the addiction to that chemistry from the past is being broken. And the reason I'm thinking that is I've been quizzing the people that I've been through that process with and getting feedback from them. And one of the main pieces of feedback that I'm getting, and it's coming from every person I've done it with, is, well, I had these things, and when they came up, they were traumatic and they were painful, and they were my story, and I did forgiveness around them, and I've been working through it, but, it always is there to grab me by the face. What I'm noticing is, or what I'm getting in the way of feedback is that everybody's saying, well, I'm realizing those things are still there.
Just what?
They're not grabbing me by the face. They're not. I'm realizing that those, I realize I've still got my work to do, but I'm not. Those things, when they surface, yesterday grabbed me by the face, and there was nothing I could do about it except my next worksheet, my next piece of work around it. But what I'm hearing from people is, now it comes up, but he can't grab me by the face. It's just there. And it's easy
exactly. Yeah. I'm there, Michael. I watch. I'm curious, and I allow it, and I wait. I didn't do the still point, though, but I have experienced exactly that. I just don't respond to it anymore.
Okay. So that's breaking the addiction to Satan.
Okay. But
Satan,
why is it
mind
there at all?
Because there are 1,000 high-level traumas, and when people do things like, I am weak and helpless, not I am love, but when they lose their identification with who they are, I am an addict. No, you're not an addict. Are you addicted to something? Yeah. You're a sinner. No, you're not a sinner. Have you sinned? Have I sinned? Yes. But that doesn't make us one of those. It's something we've engaged in. And that's the difference, that it's not an identity anymore.
Got it. That's amazing. That fits in with something that happened last night. I was, in the Bible it says, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, soul, mind, and strength. And I say that to my cat. I literally say that to my cat, wishing that I could say it to God. And then God says, you keep wanting. I mean, this is just my happy thought. I'm not saying God spoke to me. I don't know who spoke to me.
Yeah, right.
But I heard in my mind, God said, you're already loving me when you love the cat. And every person you love. And you say, Michael, shut up about it. Don't give me the lecture right now about how I've never loved anybody. Just let me
finish. It's coming next.
Yeah, I know. You catch them. But all I can say is the love, whatever you want to call it, cherishing or whatever, that's God's nature and that's God's work, and I do that.
And that's your nature.
Doing it. Yeah.
That's your nature too. But when we bought into something else, we became addicted to being something else.
Yeah.
And it's a lie. The whole thing's a lie. But
go
ahead.
There's a component to addiction, a tremendous pleasure component. I know that with the drinking, but it stops working. You have to have more and more drink in order to get the component of the pleasure of it. And that's true.
I don't think there's any pleasure in it.
Well,
I don't think anybody gets pleasure from drinking alcohol. They get relief from their pain, and they call that pleasure.
Well, then I won't talk about alcohol. I've never been an alcoholic, but I can say that there's an intensity in the feelings I have for certain people over the centuries that I've been alive. There is a high. There's something about it. It's like 2% ecstasy and 98% pain. But the 2% ecstasy has been worth the price because I didn't stop. So anyway, carry on. That's just there is something there that invites us to continue that, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's the addiction.
Yeah.
And it's breaking. Mm-hmm. That's the idea, is to break it. And I think that this mind of man, and what I'm observing in the quantum still point is, and I've specifically devised the whole program to give people, and I observe it with the people I've worked with, anywhere from maybe 2 seconds to 3 minutes out of their minds. And that's where the major shift takes place.
Wow.
Because it's the mind of man that holds that whole structure. I mean, and when I say whole structure, I'm talking about all the generational patterns, all the rages, all the guilt, all the fears, all the pain, all the drama, all the trauma. It's that mind that holds it in place. And if you can get it to let go for that long, everything shifts.
I bet you, Michael, that when people are in a creative process where they lose themselves, that they get something similar.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. Can I ask my third question, which is the hardest one of
Please.
all?
All right, let's go for it.
I keep forgetting that my sister abused my son from age 4, as it turns out, to about 7 or 8. Sexually abused him. Not in a violent way. She would examine him to see how he was developing. And he was very uncomfortable. She never, did anything like raping, but he became frightened of her when she would, and she lived near us. We took care of her, and she would babysit a lot when they were that small. And she welcomed the babysitting. I don't know whether partly because this is of great interest to her, but he only told me about it last year at age 50. And here he is, having retired,
major,
having depression and anxiety, severe guilt and feelings of low or no self-worth. And we haven't even talked about it. He swore me to secrecy. Obviously, I'm breaking that to talk to you, but I haven't talked. My daughter knows and my husband knows. So, but he doesn't want me to speak to my sister. And I don't really see what that would bring anyway. She's old and fragile. But my daughter, being a priest in a cathedral, she says, Mom, I have seen this over and over with kids who've been abused, no matter how seemingly mildly. That kind of weird energy, inappropriate access of an adult to a child's body, hurts them in just the ways that Jonathan is suffering. Whether that's the cause, there are probably other things, but she said he has got to really do some work on this. And so I talked to him today. What, Michael?
Got to come to terms with it. This is a power person dynamic.
Yeah, and I
remember
said,
the 3 things that establish a power person dynamic? That person is not functioning as love, has more power over him than he has, and he perceives it as survival.
Yeah, right. So today we went to get some errands done, and I said, what about unearthing this? And he has a therapist, and the therapist has been very helpful, but he doesn't have the tools, so it's a whole different thing. It's just regular talk therapy. And I've said, how about you bring this up to him again? And he said, I will. He said, I don't have any sense that there's a connection. I don't feel a connection. I certainly don't want to be around your sister. And he's very good to her when he's with her. He's loving and kind. And so it's just sitting there. And I wondered if you had something to say about the next step, what it might be for him.
Knowing how the power-person dynamic works, one of the things, and it might even be more of a trauma for him than the actual interaction with your sister, is if it did establish a power-person dynamic, has he either been sexually inappropriate with someone? When under stress, that would tend to be what would happen. Or had the inclination to, been able to control it, but had the inclination to do something inappropriate, for which there is a ton and a half of guilt.
That is such a good question. Right on, Michael. That is so, I can ask him that, and I know the answer, but I won't answer it on the radio show. But that's just a true thing. Whoa, that's great.
And the actual, physical event when it happened to him is something that energetically is probably still not available to him. So it filters through the mind as this pain and this depression, and there doesn't seem to be any relationship because it's like a bigger sword than he can handle.
I get that.
It's like you get a sliver under the skin, and what's the body do? It builds a core around it and locks it away so it doesn't irritate the surrounding tissue. Well, the same thing happens. My offering would be the same thing happens in the mind. And one has to get pretty safe to let a zit like that pop.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question? You say inappropriate. I know he's had 2 sons. He has never, he's a loving, wonderful father, but there's never been any connecting with his boys like that. But he's very, very, he's on the far end of heterosexual. And he has a roving eye. Now, he's been faithful, but not, physically faithful. But it's been an issue and a struggle for him all of his life with beautiful young women. And we talk about that a lot. And it hooks him in a way.
So there's the power person dynamic going into expression. Well, and it would be doubly traumatic being a physician.
Yeah. I asked him about that once. He said, when a woman's on the table, no matter how beautiful she is, she's on the table and the lights are harsh and I have a job to do. He said, thank God it never came in there. But, there's a little girl living next door who's probably 21 now. And he really doesn't like to see her because he gets so triggered.
Right.
And
so there's where his forgiveness work lies.
Okay.
There's where his forgiveness work lies.
Oh, boy, Michael, that's so helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, that's going to be a major piece of work.
Yeah. Oh, I think he's up for doing it. He's really on the edge all the time, taking care of himself, sleeping too much, and, not taking very good care of himself.
Does he grind his teeth?
Yeah,
does he grind his teeth,
Yeah. He does. Yeah. He does. Why do you ask that? How does that connect?
Because that's when that kind of an energetic dynamic's going on, that's one of the ways of holding the energy back. And that's right at the core where the antenna is formed. And it's one of the major things that throws the whole antenna out of place for the body. Takes us out of alignment with the interchange that's supposed to happen between us and that power, whatever you call it, in which we live, move, and have our being.
Yeah. Interesting that he just called me up, Michael, so I got distracted. I'm writing him a text. Let's see. I'm just texting him. Okay, Michael. This has been absolutely pure gold to have you answer those questions, all of them, but this one in particular. Are you there?
I have a suggestion. Yes.
Okay.
I have a suggestion.
I'm listening.
How about printing off the long-form Power Person worksheet from the Codependence Intensive and doing one with him around this whole issue with sister
Power
being your
Person
sister being
long-form.
the object. Mm-hmm.
I'm drawing a blank about what one that is. Power Person.
Well, remember in the intensive, no, but it's a worksheet.
Okay.
If you remember at the beginning of the intensive, and for years it was a one-page worksheet, and out of that online intensive, it ended up becoming a 14-page worksheet.
Oh, I know the one. Yeah. What do you call it on the website? Is that what you call it?
It's actually not on the website. No, it's not on the website. It's one that we don't publish. It's part of the intensive, and it's too intricate for somebody who hasn't done the intensive to say, here, take and do this. So we don't publish it.
Okay, so what do you recommend?
But with your guidance, if you would go through that, and it will probably tie in with some of the reality management, or, we might have to do some switching back and forth. And one of the main questions I'd be asking him as I do it and watch, observe, and you'll probably see that he has a great difficulty breathing while you're going through it.
So
if you just observe how often his breath stops.
So you're saying not the long form, but just the regular wake-up sheet and watch his breathing. So I didn't go to that intensive. Did I? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think you did.
I did? Well, okay. How do I get it then?
Maybe I'm mistaken. Oh, we'll get it to you. I'll send you a link to it.
Thank you so much.
Copy of it.
That's really great. Thanks, Michael.
All right. Well, we'll be holding the space.
Thanks.
And just being for getting him to be able to go through that sheet and everywhere that he stops breathing to make note and really move the breath, because that's what's holding back that energy being released, that forgiveness happening.
And you don't think there's any problem with my being his mother doing this?
Well, it will probably bring some opportunities for you to learn forgiveness too. Probably bring some new material up for you. So, no, I think with the practice and the work you've done, you would be the perfect person to guide him through it.
Well, okay. Okay.
Your willingness will be an awesome contribution to literally to his mental, emotional, psychological ability to face and go through it.
Well, he's leaving for the Netherlands tomorrow for a week. But maybe we can even, well, I don't know how much time we have, but I love the idea of doing this. It's very hopeful.
And maybe, because once you open that can of worms, it's likely to be a process that might go on for some time. So if he's leaving for a vacation or whatever, it might be best to wait till he gets back, and where you've got a block of time,
right,
to allow things to once they start to move, to keep them moving, would be my offering.
All right. So good. Thanks, Michael.
All right, young lady, we appreciate you. Thanks for the questions. I'm sure they've been valuable to everybody.
Hope, yeah. All right.
All right, holding you both in a blessing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Everybody, thanks for joining us. All right, create the best year yet of your